Wonderful. So, hello, my name is Katherine Kreidler with the National Sports Media, and today I have the privilege to interview the 2024 National Sports Media Association Sportscaster of the Year for South Dakota, Bryce Ladwig. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, congratulations on winning the award. And what was your reaction when you found out you won?
A little bit of shock. I hadn't really expected that. It's always a really nice call to receive.
Hmm.
Definitely up there with one of my favorite calls I've received from a professional
Yay,
standpoint. So it was a really special moment for sure.
that's awesome. Have you always been interested in sports, or where did that interest develop from?
It was one of my about three professions I wanted to be growing up. I've hit two of
Hmm.
three, so we're good to go. I wanted to be in the army. I wanted to be a police officer and be, at the time, I was called it a sports radio guy. And
Okay.
I guess I've hit two of the three because I was in the army. So, but I don't think I'm going to become a
Wow.
police officer now. I think we're set.
That's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about like your journey into getting into sports? Like, did it start in high school, college?
Just my love of sports in general.
Hmm.
Definitely through my dad.
Okay.
Giant Twins fan, big NFL fan, Vikings fan. Those are the teams that we're associated with here. South Dakota adopts Minnesota mainly as our
Okay.
sports teams. And it's going out pheasant hunting with my dad in South Dakota. The back roads is listening to Vikings games on Sundays, listening to John Gordon and Twins games on the radio, of course, TV as well. Really
Mhm.
just instilled love of sports for me, sports card collecting, things of that nature. And then, of course, I played sports growing up in small town South Dakota. I played all sports. Everyone plays every sport imaginable. So, really, it was instilled in me in a young age. And the more you take in sports media, the more I wanted to become a part of sports media. And I guess it's kind of what shaped that future.
Okay. Very interesting. What kind of sports did you play? I know hockey is really popular up there.
Not in South Dakota. Yes, Minnesota.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Well, I mean, there are South Dakota hockey teams. I'm not trying to disbar anyone say hockey's not. It's getting more popular as time goes on, but especially in small town South Dakota, football,
Okay.
basketball, and a lot of baseball. There's the three in
Okay.
track too. I wasn't really a big track guy, but those four are mainly the big ones for boys in South Dakota growing up.
Okay, gotcha. That's awesome. Um, can you tell us about your first job in sports that you had?
My first job in sports would have been with the newspaper here where I'm
Okay.
located now in Yankton, South Dakota.
Hmm.
It is the Yankton Press and Dakotan, and sports editor James Simbrick. He hired me on, and I learned a lot from him, especially from a different medium in sports media, which I think
Hmm.
helped when I eventually went into radio, and just how to interview, really how to build relationships with people is kind of the main thing I took away from my time with Yankton Press and Dakotan. So he was a big help, and then I ended up working for another station in town, and then eventually found my way to KYNT as their sports director, and I've been there ever since. And I've been there now for almost 7 years. So,
Okay, wow, that's awesome. Um, what would you say were like any early challenges you faced and like how you overcame them?
early challenges. So I was a non-trad student at the
Okay.
University of South Dakota, meaning that I was in the Army from 18 years old to 20, almost 24. And so then I went into school and I took some time off after. So I went into school at like 25, 26 years old. And so I guess that career wise, not as much of a challenge because if anything, it was an advantage being older and more mature and
Hmm.
kind of started the profession with like a wife basically, or almost just about to be married. So I was kind of another step ahead of where most people would be. But school
Yeah.
wise, it was difficult because it's kind of hard to communicate or at least be on, I guess, collaborate with at that time younger kids about 6 years younger than you, at least at the very least. But
Right.
so that was a challenge, but also probably gained some valuable experience from that.
So then you mentioned joining the newspaper and like where you work now. Do you have any favorite moments that you've had or big events that like really stood out that you've covered or games or anything?
Some state tournaments are big deals. I've been lucky enough to cover a few state championship winning teams, and My favorite game of all time is, if you want to be very specific, is the 2022 state tournament semifinal, Yankton Bucks versus Sioux Falls Jefferson Cavaliers. And that was just the most fun I've ever had broadcasting. Is that one
Oh,
game? It
that's
wasn't even the
nice.
championship game. The championship game was fun, and I'll
Hmm.
always hold that in my heart. But that semifinal game was the most fun I've ever had calling a game, and so that will always, until it's surpassed, I guess. But that's, as of now, my favorite of all time. In other big moments, so I actually created, with help with my station, but KYNT. So
Hmm.
KYNT is our radio part, and then KYNTV is our live streaming, which that's just the way that sports in small media, small radio media is going right now, is live
Right.
streaming.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so we knew that, and so we created KYN TV, and we've been lucky enough. We've actually been contracted for two different American Legion state tournaments.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, the same ones that big cable companies would run and stuff like that. Like, they chose us, and we were able to run it and did a really nice job. And so they invited us back for another year, obviously. And I take a lot of pride in that, because it was something that was definitely outside of our scope of expertise at the time. And that's just another thing we learned. And we learned a lot of lessons doing stuff like that. So those are some big events that we've done. And then, as far as my
Mhm.
favorite call, definitely that state semifinal game.
That's great. Um, what does like a typical day in your life look like?
Well, I have two kiddos at home that make me run wild right away in the morning. But
Yeah.
once I get one of them to school and one of them to daycare, I get to the station late morning, and that's the thing about my job, is I have very odd hours. I
Yeah.
put in my hours for sure, but they're not traditional at all. There's some days where I actually work from my home studio, which is where I'm at right now, and days where I go in, a little bit of both,
Hmm.
some days. But I also have an assistant sports director that does some of the tasks for me, because ever since we created KYN TV, we've put a lot more on our plate. We do more now. And once you start doing nice things, people want more, which is great. But there's more I needed help. So I have him doing some stuff. But uh, I get into work. I take care of the sports department, payroll and stuff, like the admin stuff. And then I create graphics for upcoming games. I prep for my own games. I make sure that the ad logs are all ready to go. Basically, half of it is prep for a game that's about to happen, and then half is taking care of business on the back end of games that have already happened, if that makes sense. Putting them in the
Yeah, yeah.
archives and things of that nature, and making sure our equipment is ready to go. Equipment likes to break down, because it's just like a
Right.
car. It's just
Yeah.
like a car. You use it enough, it's going to break down. So you have to kind of know how many miles you've been putting on equipment, what you need to be checking. So just a lot of getting ready for the fun part of the job, which is like 10% of it.
That's great. Um, and then I guess lastly, do you have any advice for students or young professionals who are interested in sports media careers?
Oh yeah, it's a very very fun career. And
Hmm.
don't let people scare you and say, like, oh, you don't want to get into that. It's not. It is worth it. It's a very fun profession. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of hard work, and you do have to pay your dues. Um, and I didn't have to pay as much dues as a lot of people, probably not because of anything special. I just got lucky, But I
Hmm.
hear some of my friends that are also in the industry had to put a lot more time in, and it's there's only so many of these kind of really great jobs open, and so you just have to be patient, put your time in, and jump at any opportunity that comes your way, and do the best you can. And if that's something you want to do, because at the end of the day, yes, I get paid to call sports games, something that I would probably be at anyway, paying to be there.
Yeah,
So I get to call sports for a living, and it's really a blessing.
that's awesome. Um, well, I don't think I have any more questions, but this was great. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, and congratulations on your award. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.